Today we have as guest in our interviews series Professor Christian Sahner from Oxford, of the University of Oxford. Professor Sahner, thank you very much to be with us. Can you please introduce yourself briefly?
It's nice to be with you, Rocco. As you said, my name is Christian Sahner. I'm an associate professor of Islamic history at the University of Oxford and also a fellow of St. Cross College. And I'm now in my fourth year of teaching here. My main areas of interest are the transition from late antiquity into the early Islamic period, relations between Muslims and non-Muslims, and above all, Christians and Zoroastrians. And more recently, I've been doing a lot of work on the regional history of the pre-modern Islamic world, principally Iran, Syria, and the Islamic West, which is, I think, where I came into contact with the Hamburg Center. I've written or edited several books. The most recent one, and I think the occasion of my invitation to speak in Hamburg, was a collection of primary sources that I edited with colleagues in the US as well as in Israel, entitled Conversion to Islam in the Pre-Modern Age. So if I had to kind of summarize one theme that holds all of my interests together that I mentioned just a minute ago, it is this broad theme of social and religious change that is occasioned by the act of conversion.
Okay. Last week you attended our guest lecture series with an amazing talk. How was your experience as speaker at our institute?
I had a great experience. I received an invitation from Stefan Heidemann, who's the co-director of your center and whom I've had the pleasure of meeting before. And Stefan asked me to make a few informal comments on the history of conversion and religious change in North Africa. As I mentioned, my own research interests are currently going in that direction. I've been thinking and reading a great deal about the conversion of the indigenous population of North Africa to Islam, the long-term trajectory and history of Christianity in that region. Those are all questions that have been on my mind for quite a while. And so it was a wonderful opportunity to put together thoughts. And to be very specific, my presentation was essentially about the early Islamic missionary movements that were active in North Africa, and attempting to connect the history of these movements to the broader theme of religious change. So how is it that North Africa went from being, needless to say, a majority non-Muslim region, as all regions of the early Islamic Empire were at the beginning, into a majority Muslim world, and the role that proselytization, preaching, mission played in that. It's not usually something that is part of the story, but was a crucial factor in the long-term history of Islamization. And I focused on four groups in particular. I talked about the Ibadis. I spoke about the Mu'tazilis, famous finally the Ismailis, as well as missionaries sent by the Umayyad state. So again, I used these four case studies, histories of missions, proselytization, as a way of thinking about how North Africa in the long term flipped from this majority Christian region, as it had been in late antiquity, into the seemingly majority Muslim region that it became at some point in the later Middle Ages. So it was a great experience.
Okay, great. So, last question. What kind of impression you got about our center? I mean, can you imagine to cooperate again with us? And what kind of things do you imagine to do with us in the future?
Well, I mean, Hamburg is an internationally recognized center for the study of Islamic history, Roman history, late antiquity. And so there are a few places elsewhere in Europe and indeed in the world where you find more exciting collaborations than in Hamburg. So, you know, if I am welcome and the opportunities arise, it would be great to continue to speak in Hamburg with the center. It would be great to read its publications, to introduce my students to your work, and likewise your students to the work that we do here in Oxford. But for me, what is most exciting about the center is that it embodies the idea that the rise of Islam must be contextualized in the history of late antiquity. To see those two worlds, those two periods as divided is deeply misleading. So a center that has at its core the study of the late antique Western Mediterranean alongside the early Islamic Mediterranean, seeing them as one and the same world, albeit shaped by deep transformations, that's exciting and is exactly where the field is going. So I look forward to doing more with Hamburg in the future.
Okay. So, Professor Sahner, thank you very much for this great interview. Thank you very much for your time. We hope to see you again at RomanIslam Center, but the next time, hopefully, live in person here in Hamburg.
God willing. Thanks, Rocco.